The world is reeling from the Great Depression, and in the vast, unforgiving outback, returned soldiers from World War I are trying to make a new life as farmers. The government gave them land, encouraging them to plant wheat. But it was a brutal existence. The soil was poor, the rain was a gamble, and then wheat prices collapsed. These farmers were on the brink of losing everything. In the small town of Woolgoolaa in Western Australia, they were holding on by a thread. Little did they know, their biggest challenge wasn't the economy or the weather. It was an army of about 20,000 birds marching their way. And these weren't just any birds. We're talking about emus. The second largest bird on the planet. They stand up to 6 feet tall, with legs powerful enough to run at 30 miles per hour. Normally, emus migrate across the continent, but 1932 was different. A severe drought pushed a massive population of them right into the farmlands of Western Australia. Fort de Emus. It was a paradise lush fields, fresh water, and an all-you-can-eat buffet of wheat. For the farmers, it was a catastrophe. The birds trampled their crops, tore down fences, and created openings for other pests, like rabbits, to pour in. The farmers, many of them were veterans, tried shooting them, but it was like trying to stop a flood with a bucket. Desperation set in. Their livelihoods were being eaten, stomped, and destroyed, one field at a time. Facing total ruin, the farmers, many of them ex-soldiers, marched on the capital, Perth. They went straight to the government and demanded action. The Minister of Defense, Sir George Pearce, felt the political pressure. He agreed to send in the military. Yes, you heard that right. The plan was to deploy soldiers from the Royal Australian Artillery, armed with 2 Lewis light machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. Their mission, commanded by Major G.P.W. Meredith, was simple: reduce the emu population and save the crops. The press caught on immediately, and with a mix of seriousness and humor. They dubbed it the Great Emu War. The name stuck, and it would go down in history as one of the most bizarre military operations ever conceived. The stage was set for a showdown between the Australian military and a flock of giant, flightless birds. The soldiers arrived in November 1932, ready for battle. Their strategy was to set up machine gun nests and ambush the emus. But the emus weren't playing by the rules of conventional warfare. When the troops encountered their first group, the birds didn't stand still. At the first sound of gunfire, they scattered in every direction, running erratically in small groups. Hitting a single moving target with a machine gun is hard enough. Hitting dozens of them sprinting away is nearly impossible. In one early ambush near a dam, the soldiers waited for 1,000 emus to get within range. But just as they opened fire, one of the machine guns jammed. Out of that massive flock, reports say only about a dozen birds were taken down. It was an embarrassing start. So, they tried a new tactic, mounting a machine gun on a truck to chase the birds down. But the rough outback terrain made the truck bounce so violently that accurate shooting was a joke. The soldiers couldn't keep up. The emus were faster, more agile, and far more unpredictable than anyone had anticipated. So what makes an emu so tough? These birds are built for survival. Their powerful legs aren't just for running. They're for covering vast, harsh distances with incredible endurance. They are masters of the Australian landscape. During the so-called war, soldiers were shocked by their resilience. They reported hitting birds that just kept on running for miles before finally collapsing. Major Meredith, the commander, famously wrote that the emus could face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. He was in awe of how they organized themselves. When under fire, he noted that each small group of emus seemed to have its own leader, a big, black-plumed bird that would stand guard while the others fed, and would give the warning to scatter. Every strategy the military treated ambushes, mobile attacks, waiting games ended the same way. The emus would outmaneuver them, scatter, regroup somewhere else, and continue their destructive feast on the wheat fields. The Australian army was learning a hard lesson. You can't fight nature with bullets. After several weeks of this absurd conflict, the official numbers told a story of failure. According to Major Meredith's own report, nearly 10,000 rounds of ammunition had been fired to kill just under 1,000 emus. That's about 10 bullets for every confirmed kill. It was an incredibly inefficient and expensive operation. Even worse, it wasn't making a dent in the overall emu population. The birds were still destroying crops. By early December, the government had seen enough. The operation was officially called off, and the troops were withdrawn. The Great Emu War ended not with a bang, but with a whimper. The military had been defeated. The emus had won. As you can imagine, the news media had an absolute field day. Headlines across Australia and even overseas mocked the entire campaign. The image of a modern army being outsmarted by a bunch of birds was just too good to pass up. Jokes circulated that if any medals were to be awarded, they should go to the emus for their bravery and tactical genius. Conservationists criticized the government for attempting a mass slaughter of native wildlife, while politicians pointed fingers, calling it a prime example of a bureaucratic solution that was completely out of touch with reality. And the farmers, they were left angry and frustrated. Their plea for help had turned into a national laughingstock, and their crops were still being destroyed. The Great Emu War became a cautionary tale about the folly of trying to solve an ecological problem with military force. So, what happened after the army went home? The emu problem didn't just vanish. Farmers were still desperate. They asked for military help again in later years, but the government, having learned its lesson, refused every time. Instead, they turned to more practical solutions. A bounty system was put in place, paying farmers for every emu they culled. In just 6 months, in 1934, civilians claimed over 57,000 bounties. It turned out that individual farmers, who knew the land and the animals, were far more effective than soldiers with machine guns. More importantly, the government helped fund the construction of massive exclusion fences. These tall, sturdy barriers were designed to keep emus and other pests out of the croplands. This proved to be the most effective solution of all. Over time, attitudes shifted. The emu, once seen as vermin, eventually gained protected status, recognized as a vital part of Australia's ecosystem. Today, the Great Emu War is remembered as one of the strangest and most humorous episodes in Australian history. It's a story that perfectly captures the country's unique character, a land of quirky wildlife, harsh landscapes, and people with a good sense of humor about their own failures. The emu's bizarre victory has become a powerful metaphor for nature's ability to defy human control. And in a beautiful twist of irony, the emu, the bird that defeated an army now, stands proudly on Australia's coat of arms, right next to the kangaroo, as a symbol of a nation that is always moving forward. From a desperate plea for help to a military embarrassment, the story of the Great Emu War is a perfect reminder that sometimes history is far stranger than fiction. It shows us the complex relationship between humans and the natural world, and how even our most powerful technology can be humbled by the simple, stubborn resilience of nature. The emus of Western Australia weren't an enemy army. They were just incredibly well-adapted animals trying to survive. And in the end, they didn't need weapons to win. They just needed to be themselves. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into one of history's weirdest conflicts, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more strange stories from the past. See you next time.